folks who are stocking our grocery shelves, making sure that families have food, that we have the toilet paper that we need right now, they've been working 24/7 since the beginning of this pandemic. And they deserve to be treated as essential. They are sacrificing their lives and their health, and they should not be sacrificial.
And that is Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda talking about a new measure to add $4 an hour in hazard pay for grocery workers in the city of Seattle. This, one of many COVID-related issues we're going to be discussing this week on Seattle News, Views, and Brews, the coffee break political podcast that 4 out of 5 listeners say is not a major health hazard, so we got that going for us. I'm Brian Callanan. I'm a host on Seattle Channel, the views expressed here on my own, and joining me is Kevin Schofield of Seattle City Council Insight. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Well, I have to admit, I am that 5th listener. So,
oh no, I knew it.
But
other
than that, I'm doing good.
Right. Sounds good. Sounds good. A big thank you to City Grind Espresso, our background noise sponsor for the audio podcast. That is the coffee stand on the first floor of City Hall, closed during the pandemic, but please help them out online, support other small businesses too, folks. Thanks also to our patrons on Patreon. Some great news coming later in our show about joining our mug club. Yes, indeed, your very own mug with the Seattle News, Views, and Brews logo. We're making it happen, and we are asking more people to step up and help out. Please become a patron, support local independent journalism, and help out here to keep this show alive. Thanks also to Converge Media. Converge runs the video version of our podcast on their YouTube channel Wednesday nights at 6. Thanks, Omari, for helping us make that happen. Nikki and Veronica and the rest of the gang, too. All right, off we go with right here, right now. So we're going to start with a measure scheduled for a vote this week from the Seattle City Council to add $4 an hour in hazard pay for grocery workers in the city of Seattle. So Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda is sponsoring this measure. It's modeled after what several cities are doing in California, Berkeley, Oakland, Los Angeles, many others now working on this. So Kevin, this is targeting grocery stores, ones with 500 or more employees nationwide. Some of those grocery stores, like in the Kroger chain, did have a $2 an hour hazard pay raise at the start of the pandemic, but most of that's dried up for the most part. I'm seeing this happening here. I'm hearing it called an emergency, and it sure seems like the council is trying to push this through pretty quickly.
Yeah, from first hearing in committee last Friday to being voted out of committee to the following Monday being getting final approval. Yeah, that's going super fast.
Yeah,
and and she only introduced the bill last week, so
right.
It is all very fast. I've sent some questions off to her that I haven't really even gotten answered yet. Things like so this bill proposes $4 an hour of hazard pay through the rest of the COVID emergency.
Right.
And no doubt we ask a lot of grocery workers right now.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
We asked a tremendous amount of them. But the question that I asked Councilmember Mosqueda that I haven't got an answer yet to is, where does the $4 an hour figure come from?
Yeah.
And $4 to $5 an hour is what other cities are doing.
Just what other cities are doing. Yeah.
But like, is that it? Are we just trying to copy other cities, or is there actual math behind this? Right?
Yeah.
Does it have to do with the extra costs that they're doing? Extra healthcare cost. What is it? Why $4? Why not $6? Why not $2? As you mentioned, some organizations, some stores had previously done. So,
right.
But again, we're going fast with this. So, and certainly grocery workers are at higher risk right now. And, and as we see these variants of COVID start to spread now that are potentially much more contagious.
Yes.
It's certainly something we have to continue to pay attention to.
Yeah. And I look at this too. I just wonder why. I mean, I would want to support these workers that are in the grocery situation right now. Of course, they're dealing with a lot of people coming in right now, but I know there are some health workers who aren't getting a pay raise right now. They aren't getting hazard pay right now. I just wonder why exactly grocery workers? Why now? I think that's part of the conversation too. Or what do you think about that equity issue when it comes to workers?
Well, that's interesting, and one could argue that this is perhaps the first step.
Yeah,
and,
right.
If this goes through quickly with no opposition, and it likely will go through with no opposition, then we will see similar bills like this for other professions, for healthcare workers, right? And it's an interesting strategy because it's the kind of thing you would expect the unions that represent these workers to be out fighting for.
Yeah.
And I get, and I suppose they are, but the method they're choosing to fight is rather than negotiate directly with employers on this stuff, they're using the
City
local government,
Yeah.
city government to do the
Yeah.
negotiating for them
Yeah.
by fiat.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll see what happens in terms of the background on this one. But I did want to give everybody some background in terms of how these large grocery store chains are doing financially, at least through the COVID pandemic. There was a Brookings Institution report about this. It showed that profits were up at least 39% in the first half of last year. Kroger, in particular, nearly doubled its profits compared to the first half of 2019. So I think the council is definitely looking for some revenue in different ways here, but also looking to help out some different workers that are in trouble here. So we'll have to see how that one pans out. But I should also point out that Whole Foods, Walmart, Trader Joe's actually still do have some pandemic pay raises in place. So we'll have to see how the market sorts this out and see how the city council sorts this out. But I did want to move on to another piece that we wanted to cover here, Kevin. What a difference a week makes. We now have a new president in Joe Biden. And the story now, how does that impact local governments in Seattle and I think around our area? I talked with Councilmember Mosqueda recently about this on Council Edition on the Seattle channel. She said, now it feels like we have a partner in the federal government, one that supports science, one that's fighting the COVID pandemic. And we're going to talk about the pandemic in particular in just a minute. But Kevin, what does that say to you? And what do you think it means to have Joe Biden in the White House? How does that really impact the political workings of the city council, do you think?
Well, I think to Councilmember Mosqueda's point, in some ways, there is a better partner for a lot of logistical things they want to do, whether it's the response to homelessness, the, getting, treatments and supplies and PPE and vaccines in the hands of people who respond to COVID. But I think another big part of it is just simply money, right? The city, is cash strapped for a lot of things they want to be able to do, including economic relief for, for people who suffered during the economic downturn related to COVID.
Right.
But also, things like, homelessness, and transportation. We were fixing the West Seattle Bridge, and dealing with our backlog of bridge maintenance. And there's no lack of things the city wants to be able to spend money on.
Yeah, and let me jump in real quick here, Kevin, because I think an important point of the last budget process, just showing those deficits in terms of revenue that the city's been looking at. That's been cratering because people aren't buying as many things and kind of hunkering down or whatever else. That loss of revenue, $200-300 million somewhere in there, that's a big deal for the city of Seattle. But use that point, please. Keep going.
Yeah, it is. And then I think there's another part here, which is simply the city isn't going to feel like it's under attack by the federal government anymore, right? Where we had early on in the Trump administration, starting this war against immigrants, and particularly undocumented immigrants in the DACA program, and increased deportations. But then just thinking about last summer when Trump administration declared Seattle to be an anarchist jurisdiction. Right. That nonsense hopefully is just going to stop at this point, right? So that will hopefully just improve a lot of things and just overall improve relations, right? And make it possible for more things to happen between the federal government and the city.
Right. You see some different pieces aligning when it comes to some of the race and social justice initiatives that Seattle's talking about. The majority Muslim country travel ban. Biden got rid of that. Stopping the border wall with Mexico, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. You can see a few of those priorities, I guess, lining up a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions that we still really have to see where the Biden administration comes down on is police reform. Right. Police reform was really big under Eric Holder and the Obama administration. Right. And the Trump administration really flipped 180 degrees on that.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to see after all the events of the last year, how much the Biden administration flips it back. He while he was campaigning, Biden, try to kind of thread the needle on this, right?
He did. He said, I'm not for defunding the police. I remember
he said, I'm not for defunding the police. I support police, but I also support, important reforms. And we'll just, it'll be interesting to see what kind of, reform and whether there's money behind that for police reform.
That's the other shoe to drop. And you're absolutely right. When you think about that, the federal consent decree process that was launched against the SPD, that happened in 2011, 2012 there. That was during the Obama years. And I think we'll have to see where that plays back. But that threading the needle is going to be very important. I do want to touch on one more piece with this, because you mentioned the homeless there, and the Seattle Times had a really interesting piece on this. President Biden is working on this issue big time when it comes to homelessness, extending that national eviction moratorium through March. He has an extensive plan here, and a big part of it making housing assistance an entitlement like food assistance, so more vouchers for people, things of that nature. But with such an expensive housing market in Seattle, it's kind of unclear right now as to what impact that would be to put even that bit of money, a bit more money in people's pockets. It's not going to work for everyone. I think that's a part of this puzzle too, Kevin.
That is, and there isn't one housing market.
Yeah,
there's
that's
a
true.
lot of different
Right.
housing markets.
Right.
There's, and normally we break it up in a mostly accurate model, which is looking at sort of the income of different groups.
Yes.
Right. Whether it's
average,
this group that is
right.
30% of the annual median income, or kind of 60 to 80%.
Yeah.
And the 100% and up who really can do with much more with sort of market rate housing.
Right.
And then of course there's the luxury market, right? And things don't necessarily work in the same way across those. It is interesting, over the last year, there's been a significant decline in rental housing prices in the city.
Yeah.
Right. That's, I'm still not sure exactly how to square that with the eviction moratorium, right? You think with an eviction moratorium in place,
you would think that,
with people trying to stay in place, what exactly would be driving housing prices? It turns out a good amount of it is people who decided that they wanted a backyard for their kids, right? And so along with rental prices going down kind of in the core of the city, housing prices, particularly for purchasing houses, have gone way up, sort of in the periphery of the city and out in the suburbs.
Yeah, and in looking at that, I just wonder if there are going to be some changes for housing and urban development, such that we might see some different zoning issues pop up in the city of Seattle when it comes to single family zoning. This is the constant cry of people who are urbanists to try to make sure that more of that housing is going in our single family neighborhoods. And I wonder, I feel like that might be a part of this too, Kevin.
It might. It's not clear that the federal government has a role in doing that, right?
Yeah.
Or whether that would be state government or just simply local.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of it is really zoning.
Right.
There's nothing preventing the city of Seattle from banning single family zoning already. And Councilmember Mosqueda and a couple of the council members, have their sights set on doing that.
That's right. Yeah. We're going to see how that plays out over the next several months, of course, but some interesting changes here with the advent of the Biden administration. All right, we're going to move on to Now Hear This. All right, back on the impact of the new Biden administration on the city of Seattle. We're talking about a city, like many others, that is struggling to get COVID vaccines out to its residents. That situation really underscored by the president's words last week as he signed a series of executive orders and reflected on the more than 400,000 people who have died in the pandemic. Let's listen.
To heal, we must remember. To heal, we must remember. It's important to do that as a nation. We must also act, though, not just remember.
Okay, so Kevin, the president's saying to heal, we must remember, but we also need some action too. And I wanted to touch on this because the city's mobile vaccination team has wrapped up its work in the adult family homes, in that segment of what it was working on, vaccinating workers, residents there, now moving on to its next phase. Let's talk about this. What is happening next for this team that's going on the streets and trying to vaccinate people?
Yeah, so they're getting, they got about 1,400 doses of the vaccine in their first batch, since they got certified to receive doses directly from the federal government.
That's right.
It doesn't have to go through the state and within
right to the city. Yep.
Distribution. They can go straight from the federal government, and they think they're getting about 1,000 doses a week from this point on, at least for now. That's what they're hearing. That's kind of the last word from the Trump administration on this. And so what they're doing is they're saying, now that we've dealt with the adult family homes, we're going to move on to home care workers.
Okay.
And they're partnering with the local union that represents a large number of the healthcare workers to have a pop-up vaccination clinic that will allow them to, they hope, get about 300 of them in a single day. And then they're also going to be, over the next week or two, fanning out to permanent supportive housing
Yes.
residents,
Right.
and
Right.
to sort of older residents in affordable housing complexes in the city,
Right.
to try to
Right.
hit, a bunch of these people that are really very vulnerable
Yeah.
to the worst effects of this. And so I think
And-
what we're going to end up seeing, because the numbers really aren't huge right now,
I was going to mention
is we're not going to see the case rate go down.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I think what we will see probably in about a month is a mortality rate start
Right.
to go down,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're vaccinating the folks who are most likely to have tragic consequences
Yeah.
of,
Right.
of catching the vaccine.
Because I hear what you're saying, because when the Seattle Fire Department, et cetera, is announcing, hey, we put out 700 vaccines, it's like, that really doesn't seem like much at all. But when you talk
Right.
about the people that they're actually serving there, which are all in this phase 1B, tier 1 of the governor's plan there,
Yep.
we're talking about some of the people who really are most vulnerable. And the hope is that we're going to make some changes, I guess, with that mortality rate. We could see that, I guess, in the future.
Yeah.
Kevin, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's going to be a while. It's not going to be instantaneous.
Right.
Both because the getting a single dose of the vaccine doesn't have an immediate effect. It takes about 10 days for that to start your body to react and generate your own immune response to that. To get full efficacy, you need the second dose, which is 3 to 4 weeks out from there, and then and that has another 10 days to take full effect.
Sure.
And then while we see sort of infection rates sort of within about a week of infection, more, the hospitalization rate is about 3 weeks after that, and mortality is 4 to 5 weeks after that, right? So so the things we do today, we're really, in terms of like the mortality rate, we're really going to see kind of in March. Right. It's going to be a while before we really see the numbers change based on that.
I was going to point out, though, I think King County is certainly a partner in this. They are talking about rolling out some of these mass vaccination sites very soon, within a matter of weeks at the start of February. Big project to make that happen. But I have to think that that's going to be part of the situation too, because my folks, I'm very glad to say, my parents live in Southern California. They were actually able to get into one of the mass vaccination sites there, drove the car, waited for a half hour, et cetera. Mom and Dad, I'm very glad that you were able to get that shot there. But this is one of those things. I think we're going to start to see more of that type of activity in the Seattle area very soon here, Kevin.
Yeah, which should be great, because there are a lot of where we are right now is as the Biden administration's discovered, the Trump administration had no distribution plan. Right. They were completely leaving it up to the states and really not giving particularly good guidance to states on how to do this. Right. So there's the states and cities and counties really don't have any numbers about what to expect in terms of the doses they get. Right. There are a lot of cities and counties, including Seattle and King County, who are ready to scale up large scale vaccination sites and clinics and things like this. And right now, they just don't know when they're going to get vaccines to be able to do that and get enough numbers to do that. But so these clinics are starting so that they can reach the people who are eligible now. Right. It's not in and of itself going to increase sort of eligibility. That's still up to kind of the state. And but hopefully
those guidelines are out there with the phase finder for the state.
Where just getting shots into arms has been lagging. They're hoping this will kind of speed that up a little bit.
A different president in place, one that does not have a red button on the desk to call for a Diet Coke to come in. That's one of my biggest head shaking moments over the past week or so.
One.
I know. Just hit the button. It's great. All right. I'm going to head back to some more of the local activity that's happening here in Seattle, which was connected in a sense to some of the different political rancor that we've been seeing nationwide here. Councilmember Shama Sawant, some disturbing news here. She says she's received some threatening emails from a person with access to a Seattle Fire Department email address. So they were sent between December 17th, January 18th, saying things like, the time is here, announce your resignation now or else. And also, if you know what's good for you, you would know it's time to go. If you need help leaving, try jumping headfirst off the top of your building. I'll even push you. So I thought this was really interesting, Kevin, because I know the fire department looked into this last month, let the council member know that. According to the person attached to this address, they said they didn't send these emails, but the emails kept coming. And council member Swan said, wait a minute, you didn't change the password? What's going on here? Your thoughts about this? Some really dangerous messages that are being sent.
Yeah, the messages are very dangerous and shocking. We just don't have enough information to know what's going on here, right? And hopefully in the weeks to come we will get more information. Fire department says it was apparently a fire department email account from a fire department employee. They've said they're investigating. Seattle Police Department said they're investigating.
Right.
Mayor's office has said it's being investigated.
Sure.
But that's all we have right now on
Okay.
this. And I think, it's really hard to say what's really going on with this. We don't, we just, it's, I liken this in a lot of the way to, the reports we got that now, there were apparently 5 Seattle police officers who were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th.
Right? Yeah. During the insurrection.
And, but it's not illegal to be in Washington, D.C.
That's right. That's right.
And we don't yet have any information about what any of them were doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if they were just at Trump's rally, as much as, we can despise what happened at the rally itself and the things that he and Giuliani and other speakers said.
Right.
It's not illegal for
them to be
officers.
there.
It's actually against, at the very least, policy for them to show up wearing their police uniform at a political event.
Okay.
But if they were in plain clothes and they just went on their own, they have First Amendment rights too. Right?
Yeah. Right.
If they stormed the Capitol, that's a very, very different thing. But there's been no public accusations yet that any of them did anything illegal. Right. So for both these cases, for that and for the terrible emails that were sent to Councilmember Sawant, it's easy for us to jump to conclusions. But we actually have to wait and get real evidence on this.
True. And I think there are so many different First Amendment issues, arguments that are going to be made over the next several weeks. We're actually going to dive into one next in our final segment, What's Next? Kevin, I wanted to talk about a court ruling in Seattle last week. A U.S. District Court judge, Barbara Rothstein, said Amazon does not have to put the right-wing friendly social network Parlor back online. Amazon, of course, kicked Parlor off the server on January 11th after a big increase in violent content on Parlor. Parlor sued, and here we are. The judge said putting Parlor back online would be against the public interest. So here we go, Kevin. Where do you see this case going?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, you can say that Parlor is right-wing friendly, but that's really sort of understating the case. They were hosting not only violent, threats against people, but arguably conspiracy to insurrection. That's one of many sites that was being used to organize the January 6th and subsequent riots and unrest. And and the federal law is very specific about protecting the hosting of that content, but also giving the hosts flexibility to remove content that they think is inappropriate. So there's still some arguments back and forth about whether Amazon had given proper notice and enough time to Parlor about things that I thought were offensive and objectionable content that they were continuing to host on the site. But at the end of the day, what they had been asking for, and this is really just sort of phase one of this lawsuit, was they were asking for a preliminary injunction to force Amazon to
put them back on
Parlor. And the standard for that is 4-part. We talked about this before. Things. You have to show that Parlor would have to show that they were likely to succeed on the merits of their case, that they were subject to irreparable harm. And that the balance of the harms tips in their favor, and that an injunction would be in the public interest. And what Judge Rothschild said was irreparable harm. Clearly not being hosted is irreparable harm. But they were not likely to succeed on the merits of their case because clearly there was violent and objectionable content on their site, and Amazon pointed that out. The balance of harms does not tip in their favor, and it's not it's not at all clear that it's in the public interest to allow Parlor to rehost this stuff.
And I just look at this, Kevin, this whole concept of free speech. I think we're going to have a lot of discussions about this going forward, especially when it comes to social media networks here. I mean, the judge also said that this is a private company that we're talking about here. This is not the U.S. government saying you can't post that or whatever else. This is a private company making that decision and saying, forget it, we can't have you on here. And Parlor, for its part, I know they're going to be pushing forward with this, but in terms of the actual work work that Parlor did to look at content there, these were volunteer judges, I guess. Basically, they're looking online at this material and saying, oh, that's okay, and that's not. I think Amazon was looking at this, and I'm not one to protect Amazon for any different thing, but I think in looking at this, Amazon said, wait a minute, the filters or whatever else you're using, they are straight up not working here, and look what happened. I mean, I think that's a piece of this too. I mean, I hear what people are saying about free speech, but there's a lot of other pieces to this.
Yeah. So, there are a lot of folks who are confused about what the First Amendment says. The First Amendment says that the government can't censor
that's right.
information other than, there are limits to that. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
That's right.
But that the First Amendment says essentially nothing about private companies, right? And so it raises this larger question in a time, in some ways gets tied up in antitrust. In fact, Parler's lawsuit was not a First Amendment lawsuit. It was an antitrust lawsuit, right?
Saying that Amazon,
there's this debate that's really starting up about deplatforming and whether Amazon and Twitter and Facebook just simply have too much power,
too big,
right? Where they can decide to remove somebody from what has become an essential sort of forum, public forum, right?
Absolutely.
That if our major political public forum now is social media, right? Do these companies have too much power to deplatform somebody and remove them from or a group of people from that? And what are the rules around that?
Yes.
In practice, it is still a little hard to argue. Well, they certainly have a ton of control. And,
absolutely.
I mean, you could look at what happened with kicking Trump off of Twitter and Facebook, and what almost overnight, how it just kind of went quiet.
Right?
And clearly that's strong evidence that they have an enormous amount of market power in this, right? But do they have enough market power to squelch alternatives?
It doesn't seem like it so far.
We need to have more debate over that.
I think so too. I'm eager to hear about that, but I'm also eager to start wrapping up our show with some of the good stuff that you got to push out the jive and bring in the love sometimes, Kevin. You know what I'm talking about. We're talking about the treats that you have with your coffee break, because you can't have a good political argument without some treats with your coffee break. So, Kevin, I humbly present to you the Noble Banana Muffin, if I will. Now we've kind of turned into a chocolate and walnut family. What camp do you fall in? Do you put those walnuts in? Do you keep them out? I know this is also an important debate.
I'm okay with walnuts. I also like putting coconut in there. I like putting shredded coconut in banana bread and banana muffins.
It gives it more of a tropical feel, perhaps. Okay, I love it.
Banana's a little tropical too.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
but,
I love it.
And you can go with more tropical kind of nuts if you want, right? You can go with cashews or macadamia nuts.
There you go.
Like that. You go with like super tropical if you want with that.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah, but chocolate is great in them too. Right?
Indeed, a good combination there. And
the thing I have to push back a little bit on is like, there's a lot of good arguments to be made that Americans tend to have dessert for breakfast.
Yeah, right? Yeah, true story.
And you can, you start adding lots of sugar and chocolate and other, things into your muffins, and muffins already have a lot of sugar and fat. To start with. It's like, that's kind of dessert, right? So
life is short, Kevin. You got to have dessert first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but at 8 a.m.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I got to wait a little while for this one to get put in the hopper. But big news. Look at Kevin taking a sip from his mug there. He really wants one of these babies. Take a look, everybody.
I totally want one of those.
I can't wait. Yep, we just got in the Seattle News, Views, and Brews coffee mug. We're giving it out to our patrons here, but we need you online at the $10 a month level. We'd really like to have you involved here. Look at these babies. And I got to say, we're hearing back from a number of our patrons that are super excited about this. We're going to be shipping them out soon. Just got them into the my underground lair here not too long ago, so I'll be shipping those out. Kevin, you're first on the list, my man. I want to make sure you get one of these 11-ounce beauties. So coming your way.
Let's make our patrons the first on the list.
All right.
I'll follow them.
They're
they're important. We got to take care of them first.
Indeed. That sounds like a great plan. Kevin, thank you always for setting me on the right moral path, as well as helping with public affairs. Good to be with you once again.
It's a service I provide.
Indeed. One of many. And thanks everybody for checking in here to Seattle News, Views, and Brews, where you can always find out what's brewing in local politics. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you might listen. And please do support us on Patreon. If you like what you're hearing, you can get one of these awesome mugs. What do you say? We need your help to keep this show going. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on Converge Media 2. We will see you next time. Seattle News, Views, and Brews is an independent production of Callanan Media Services. Copyright 2021.